Hello and welcome to Techiechap. In today's episode, I'm going to be taking a look at Feren OS. It's a Linux distribution that is based around Ubuntu and on KDE, and it's specifically catered for attracting Windows and Mac users across to the Linux platform. So, let's find out how I got on after the intro. Here we are. This is the desktop that greets you when you first install Feren OS. And I have to say, on first impressions, it's pretty slick. I do like these welcome to OS screens and tours. It's really nice, especially if you're a new user and you just need to find out how to get into the system and how to do stuff. It's nice that the team have gone to the trouble of building this welcome screen and tour. So let's start the tour. The first thing that greets you is transfer files to Ferren OS, and this is in particular a pretty decent tool for Windows users, especially if you're a Windows user that is looking to transfer to Ferren OS, because the Ferren OS team have actually built you a tool to help you with that. And I think that's a really nice idea. So essentially you can connect to an SMB share if you're running the Windows machine on the same desktop. You can also run the transfer tool to transfer Windows files directly to your Ferren OS install, as well as backup if you have a Ferren OS installed on another machine that you want to restore the files across to. So really nice that they've included that from the off. And there's also a nice how do I use transfer tool as well. The next option is the type of desktop mode, and you have Ferren OS default, which is what I'm running at the moment. Ferren OS default really is for laptops or desktops, and then you have tablet mode, fairly self-explanatory, but if you've got a touchscreen laptop or a convertible laptop or even a tablet that you're running this on, then it's quite a nice option. It makes all the buttons essentially a bit bigger and a bit easier to touch with your finger. So yeah, pretty cool. Using the desktop applications menu, well, yeah, it's fairly self-explanatory, but it does look very nice. And you also have a pretty decent search as well, very quick. LibreOffice comes up really super quick. And if we click on next, using the desktop window manager, click on an item in the task manager to switch to its windows, or if that application isn't launched, launch the application at any time. And they've kind of gone for this almost Windows 11 look with the icons in the center. So that's really nice as well. Using the desktop system tray, so they explain what a system tray is, and if you click on the little arrow down here, it can expand your system tray. And as you will see, there are a lot of KDE options, and that's because it does integrate with KDE desktop and it's using KDE as its window manager as well. So if we click on next, using the desktop search, start typing while on your desktop with no open screens, or strike Alt F2. Let's see, and yeah, it's essentially KRunner. So KRunner is a really classy tool for finding files really quickly, and it's super quick as well. So that's great that it's got that in there. Use Store to get more applications. So it's actually a custom Ferren OS store. Given that this is built on KDE, it's going to be interesting to see what we find in here. So let's just click on Open Ferren OS Store and see what we find. Now I'm running this on a Dell laptop. It's my standard E7440. So it's not the latest laptop by any means. However, it's got 8 gig and an i5 CPU. So it should be able to handle things fairly well. Well, the store looks pretty good. Interesting, despite it being built on KDE that there are also GNOME apps in here as well. So if I do a search for Kdenlive, searching software, there we go. You get the option for FlatHub, which is already built in from the off, and you also get the standard Kdenlive installer as well. So it's nice you get those two options. Let's just see, does it have, so that's version 22.04.3, and let's just see if there is a difference in this 22.04.3. So it's the same version, it's just whether you want to run it from FlatHub or from the installer. So if we click on next, here we go. So theme mode. If you'd like to, please choose the theme mode that suits you most. It will be applied across all of Ferren OS. So we've got the default mode, which is this one. Then we have light mode, and if I just select light mode, let's see what that does. Doesn't seem to do an awful lot. It looks kind of the same to me. Yeah, okay. So that's interesting. And then dark mode. So I've selected dark mode and light mode's come on. If I select light mode, does dark mode come back? It does. Wow, that's a bit freaky. Let's just set it to default. Oh no, it's gone light. Okay, I'll select light mode and then maybe it'll go dark. Oh, no. Dark mode. What? I think I broke it. Here we go, default. I don't know what happened there. Maybe a little bug somewhere. But when I was selecting light mode, I was getting dark mode and vice versa. But it seems to have reset itself now, hopefully. Right, okay, so I've gone back to default mode. Let's click on next. Pair your Feren OS machine with your Android device. Your Android device. That's another system entirely. Your Android device, and that uses KDE Connect. Now, KDE Connect is a very cool application for pairing your Android phones with your desktop and gives you a kind of like Apple-like pairing experience with your phone where you get the alerts, your SMS and things like that on your screen. So that's very nice. Let's click on next. Reduced eye strain at night, so configure night color. These are very standard sort of options now for KDE anyway. So actually what it's doing is essentially pointing you in the direction of the KDE tools that already exist, and essentially like little shortcuts, but explaining what they do in a nice way. All right, all done. That's it for the tour of Ferren OS. We hope you enjoy using Ferren OS. And we'll just click on enjoy. So it's pretty nice so far, and if I right click on the desktop you can see that the default icons and the default text and font are well sized, well proportioned. Everything looks pretty nice. I also like these window types with the curved edges on the top here. Again, it's kind of a standard KDE thing. Essentially what they've done is they've put their own Ferren OS theme on things. So let's have a look through the wallpapers, and indeed you get a Windows 11 wallpaper. How do they get away with it? I don't know. I think it's still very nice despite it being Windows, but I definitely don't want to be fooled into thinking that I'm running Windows. So if I just click on, it does look very nice, admittedly, with the dark background, but I'm just going to run that, which is also quite a nice desktop, very KDE-like. All right, so interesting. I think something's gone a little bit awry with the theming, because this is a white window and I've chosen a dark theme. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but it might be a bug that maybe needs looking into. So yeah, that's all very nice. And if I configure display settings, here we go. So there's my standard display settings. And actually, if you go back from there, you get into your standard KDE options, stuff like workspace behavior, desktop effects. You can have different desktop effects if you want, and do funky things like fall apart. So closed windows will fall into pieces when you close them. Can be a little bit disconcerting. And yeah, it's the standard KDE really, but it's running a Ferren OS theme on top. There does seem to be a little bit more than that to this, however, and we'll find out a little bit on that shortly. So about this system, let's find out what we're running. We are running KDE Plasma 5.2.5.3, KDE Frameworks 5.96.0, Qt 5.15.5, kernel version 5.15.0, and we're running it on X11. And you can see the specs of my little Dell there as well. So very recent KDE version and Qt version, and a fairly recent version of the kernel as well, the Linux kernel. And it is indeed very compatible with lots of different new bits of hardware. Detected my webcam fine. Everything detects fine, as you would expect with a newer kernel as well. And the Ferren OS 2022.04. So if we just take a look at Ferren OS website, it's going to open the default web browser, which is Vivaldi. It's not my favorite web browser, I have to say, Vivaldi. It's okay, I guess, but yeah, not my favorite. So here we go. Ferren OS Weebly, say hello to a new way to use your computer. And you can download it, and designed around you with Ferren OS. You get a desktop that is easy to initially set up and then stays out of your way afterwards, with features users would expect, such as an application menu, task manager and system tray, alongside other features. Let's move on. A whole world of applications, office software to internet browsers to games to media playback and more. Ferren OS covers a whole variety of applications. Furthermore, with Ferren OS's lightweight resources usage, you can enjoy multitasking and running more applications at once. And with Ferren OS, you can update the applications you get from the store alongside your system rather than needing to go through multiple application updates. Fair enough. Okay, now it does show here there's something called a web browser manager. So let's just take a look at that. Web browser manager. Here we are, and let's have a look to see what the selection is. Alright, so we have Vivaldi, Google Chrome is there as well, which is interesting. Microsoft Edge is in there, Mozilla Firefox, Brave, Opera, LibreWolf. Now LibreWolf is essentially Firefox, but it drops all the connectivity to any data collection services or anything like that. It's essentially the very same as Firefox, but it doesn't have any of that data collecting, and it doesn't link into Google by default as Mozilla Firefox does as well. So I'm going to install LibreWolf here because I don't think it gets enough attention. Actually, I don't think Ferren OS gets enough attention either, because these tools that they are providing here are actually fairly solid. Everything feels fairly solid and nicely put together. So I think Ferren OS is actually quite a nice distro. A little bit more. Ferren OS is a British-made Linux distribution that is based on Ubuntu, one of the most popular Linux distributions out there and well regarded for rock-solid stability. This means you'll be able to do more tasks without much of the fuss with Ferren OS. This OS is built on the same stable open source base and software that powers every system from the International Space Station to the US Department of Defense. Okay, fair enough. And there's some reviews as well. Right, so let's click on that and let's see if it launches. Gonna launch. Okay, fair enough. Let's just try it here. Libre. Oof. Oh, okay. Oh dear. Such a shame. Something happened there again. So that's a little bit of a shame that the web browser didn't work properly. Is it there? No, it's not. Let's go back to the web browser manager. Perhaps it was installing in the background and hasn't quite installed. It does say uninstall there, so that's a little bit odd. Let me close Vivaldi in case Vivaldi's doing anything dodgy in the background. No, I can't see it. That's interesting. Okay, so the web browser manager, I was saying it was rock solid, and clearly I was wrong. The web browser manager, there seems to be a little bit of an issue there. Oh, what's that in the background? No, that's just a store that I opened. So that's a little bit of a shame. Let's see, LibreWolf. Can I install it? Launch. Does it allow me to launch? It does. Could be that it was just installing in the background, but given that there was no indication that it was installing in the background, let's go back to internet. Is it there? It's still not there either. So where is it? LibreWolf. Okay. Weird. Okay, so it's not in internet. Vivaldi is. That's a little bit odd. And a bit of a shame as well, because I was getting the feeling that this is a really solid really solid installation and really nicely put together, but it seems there are a few little bugs here and there that make things feel like they're not working quite as well as they should. All right, so what other things do we have on here? So we have the tool, default applications. So we have Geary is the default email client, so that's interesting. But we also have kwrite, which is the KDE applications. So there's an interesting mix of GNOME and KDE applications on here. For example, we have Cheese on here, and hello, there I am. Let's just close that. And you wouldn't ordinarily expect Cheese on a KDE installation, but you do get the other KDE apps like the KDE Info Center. What's the default file manager? So normally, again, on a KDE installation, you would get Dolphin File Manager and you would get Discover Software Center. But what we've got here is Nemo installed. So, and another interesting choice, Nemo actually is a very good file manager. You can do things like split screen and things like that, which is very nice. You can create extra pane like that for copying from one location to the other. So it's quite comparable to Dolphin File Manager, but yeah, it's an interesting choice. That's all I can say. There's not much really between Nemo and Dolphin File Manager. I would say Dolphin File Manager has a few more options. Yeah, it's a little bit sluggish. Not sluggish, but not as fast as I was expecting it to be. Obviously, I'm running it on an older Dell, so that could be the reason why it's a little bit sluggish. Doesn't look like you can manage your repositories in here, so that's a little bit of a shame. Your repositories is where you will get your applications from, essentially. So I wonder if there is a Synaptic or something in here. Let's just go to settings. Actually, let's just do a search. Synaptic, there is. Synaptic Package Manager. All right. So good old Synaptic Package Manager, and Synaptic Package Manager, you will be able to manage your repositories from Synaptic. So if we go to settings, repositories, and this is where you can manage your repositories. So Ferren OS has its own repositories here, so that's interesting, and you can also tap into Ubuntu's repositories, and you've got additional repositories, so Google is there as well. Interesting choices, has to be said. Interesting choices with Feren OS. Let's see, global theme. Oh, right, okay. So we've got a number of themes we can choose. Doors dark. So I guess this is their opposite to Windows. So if I just click on that, apply, what does that do? Is it going to turn my desktop into horrible Windows? It is. Yes. Okay. So very Windows 11 type desktop environment. Okay. And then Ferren OS dark. Oh, that's interesting. That's got my Windows back to dark mode properly now, so that's good. Human. So human dark. Is human dark, is that going to be like Ubuntu? Let's see. Let's find out. It's thinking about it. Oh wow, it's changed quite a bit. Oh wow. Okay, yeah, all right. So yeah, it's an Ubuntu type desktop. It kind of hides what's going on up here, because I assume if I open an application, yes, yeah, it sort of hides the top here, which is a bit of a shame, because you now get that sort of application menu at the top here on the top panel. That's a shame. So it's not quite true to what you would expect from a Ubuntu type setup. Let's try human dark, see if that's any different. And then I don't know why it changes the screen to this jellyfish one. Whoops, is it gonna bring up the panel? It does. Okay, there's the panel. Yeah. So it's quite nice, but I don't know if you can resize it. Yeah, there's where you got the latte dock, and you can probably configure latte and resize it as well. Interesting. Mac and cheese. I wonder what that's going to be like. All right, let's apply that and see what we've got. What's it going to do? Oh, now I've got some rows in the background. I guess this is going to utilize the latte dock as well. It's thinking about it. I do have a lot of crashed Plasma windows up here. Plasma closed unexpectedly. Oh dear. Let's just close these. Okay, yeah, so it's like a sort of old-fashioned Mac type dock thing. I guess the good thing about that is that you get the application menu up there. So if we launch an application, you get the application menu up there. You can see the title of the application, and yeah, so that works okay. Let's try the Mac dark whilst we're here. I don't like the magnified rows in the background. I'm not sure why they've picked that as a default wallpaper. Every time I change the global theme, I get a Plasma. We're sorry, Plasma closed unexpectedly. So something's not quite right there. Okay, and then we kind of get a sort of nice dark dock down there. We'll stick with that for now, I guess. Let me just change this wallpaper because it's kind of doing my head in. Is there a mountain scene just to go properly Mac-like? Yes, there is. There we go. Right, now we are looking a bit like a Mac. So what do I think of Ferren OS? Well, clearly in this review I've come across a few bugs and issues where things haven't worked quite right. However, on the whole, I have been able to get around those issues, and actually it's really quite nice to use once you've settled on your theme and everything else. It's a shame those issues kind of interrupt things a little bit, and you get those little crash reports here and there. And as you can see, if we look at system overview, memory usage is 2.1 gig. Obviously, I'm running OBS Studio. The CPU is 24.3% at the moment, so actually quite low. But again, there's little glitches in the things like this where it must be using some CPU or memory, but I can't see them. So again, it's a shame. It's a shame that these things aren't smoothed out and ironed out, because actually this operating system could be a really, really nice operating system. And I think particularly if you are going to be catering towards Windows users who are looking to transfer over to Linux, there's some nice tools here, but ultimately they may get put off by little bugs like this and the little sort of error messages and crashes here and there as well. That could put them off. So that's a bit of a shame, but I would say that Feren OS, the project, is a really good project. It's really nice that they have gone to the trouble of putting a welcome screen together, that they have these bespoke tools that they put together to help Windows users to move across to Linux. What I would say is that Ferren OS at the moment on my installation here, and it may not be on your installation, but on my installation here, which is straight from the ISO, clean install, on this it has been a little bit buggy and there has been some issues, so I've got to give it 3.5 out of 5. Yeah, 3.5 out of 5 for Ferren OS. Well, if you have enjoyed this review and you would like to see more, then please click on like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.